Overnight, the global focus remains the US-Israel war with Iran and the risk to energy supply through the Strait of Hormuz. Multiple outlets report Washington has issued a fresh ultimatum to Tehran, with talk of intensified strikes and threats against civilian infrastructure, while Iran has rejected the latest ceasefire proposal. Reports also point to a draft concept for a 45-day ceasefire tied to reopening Hormuz, but there is no agreement and both sides are publicly hardening positions. The BBC reports a complex U.S. operation to extract an airman from Iran, which could shape U.S. decision-making on any expanded ground objectives. Separately, China is continuing gray zone pressure on Taiwan, with reporting that large numbers of fishing boats and ferries have been mobilized to form floating barriers hundreds of kilometers long, underscoring how civilian fleets are being used for strategic coercion. A second front in this conflict is information warfare. Australian reporting highlights the rise of AI-generated slop as wartime propaganda accelerates. Synthetic images, video and text are being pushed at scale to confuse attribution, inflame public opinion and overwhelm fact-checking. The practical takeaway for governments and platforms is that verification and provenance tools are becoming as important as traditional cyber defenses. On the global economy, oil risk is rising. The Financial Times reports Saudi Arabia is charging a record premium for crude to Asian customers, a sign of tighter supply expectations and heightened geopolitical pricing. In finance, J.P. Morgan chief Jamie Dimon is warning that private credit losses may be larger than feared, pointing to weakening lending standards, an alert that matters for global risk appetite if defaults rise. In U.S. politics and institutions, the Supreme Court has cleared the way for dismissal of Steve Bannon's January 6 conviction after a request from the Trump administration, a development likely to intensify domestic political contestation as the Iran conflict continues. In technology, space remains a strategic showcase. Artemis Roman 2 has reportedly set a record for furthest human travel from Earth, while the BBC notes the mission's planned communications blackout as the crew passes behind the moon, an operational reminder of the limits of connectivity, even in advanced systems. Turning to Australia, the domestic political lens is sharpening in regional seats. The ABC reports the independent campaign in Farah has gained backing from a prominent pro-climate farmer, who's also Rupert Murdoch's son-in-law, a notable signal in a traditionally conservative electorate and a reminder that climate positioning continues to reshape alliances. On the Australian economy and workforce, two pressures stand out. First, Scam watch warnings reported by the ABC say fake job scams targeting young people are surging, with criminals seeking bank details under the guise of recruitment, an issue that intersects with digital identity, payment security and the capacity of public agencies to disrupt fraud networks. Second, the ABC reports many comedians are paying thousands to stage festival shows, highlighting cost pressures in the creative economy and the gap between headline attendance and participant viability. In the technological revolution at home, SBS reports Australia's game development industry has rebounded from near collapse, with independent studios finding new pathways despite ongoing challenges, an encouraging signal for high-scale digital exports, but one that still depends on investment, talent pipelines and stable policy settings. No major new, market-moving detail is provided here on the Australian share market, but global oil pricing, private credit stress signals, and the Hormuz risk backdrop remain the key external variables for today's trading sentiment. Locally and socially, the ABC's Haywire story on Zine reflects the ongoing human impact of displacement and conflict, while cultural reporting ranges from Australia's oldest playable instruments to broader media ownership shifts in the US, where The Guardian notes the Ellisons' growing influence, relevant context as information ecosystems evolve alongside AI.